Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, what I got for you today, folks, is a story about cowboys. We got cowboys, we got wide open plains, which kind of like go together. That makes a lot of sense. Hey, euros and sense. And we also got a story of nefarious activities, which, let's be honest, they are my favorite activities, I said sarcastically with a wink. Mighty Colorado and a missing Millison. Is it happy? No. Is it interesting though? Yeah. And if you think your L1 is bad, wait till you get a load of this one. She's some woman for one woman, and it's just a whole family of... Ugh. Let's give it a go. So Colorado is where this story takes place. Haven't been there in a while, have we? I lose track, but those sly dogs thought they could slip by old Mike. Not today, sly motherfucker. Gunnison is where we are today. A small city in central Colorado, home to 6,500 people. It really is a small town, 2 grocery stores, lots of ranches. Also, it's home to Western Colorado University. Go, whatever animal you're supposed to be. Actually, they're mountaineers. Good for them. Funny story for you. Actually, well, I suppose it's not really that funny, but it's interesting. Is that during the days of the Spanish flu, you know, like 100 years ago, the town of Gunnison, they barricaded themselves off. They were like not letting anybody in or out, you know, they were so scared of the Spanish flu. They, though, got bored of that, not being able to leave or let anybody enter, and after a few months, they took down those walls. Then the Spanish flu did actually enter Gunnison and killed loads of them. Fucking hell. So yeah, it's a small town on the slopes of the Rockies, right? So, you know what that means. Things about to get rocky. If you were to drive roughly 20 minutes east of Gunnison, downtown Gunnison, where the crack is mighty, not long before entering the magical Gunnison Forest, driving along those like deserty roads, you would come across 3 things. You would come across jack shit, followed by sweet fuck all, followed by a bloody big rock. That rock is so fascinating, it's the local attraction. There really is nothing to do. It's called Indian Head Rock, named so because it kind of looks like a face. Right beside that old rock in this wild country, you'll find a ranch, the 7-Eleven Ranch, home of the Rudibaughs, home of Jake Millison. Or had been home to Jake Millison prior to his unexplained kind of disappearance. Which was odd for a young man who made the whole, like the ranch was his entire life. It was very odd. He was always on it, never off it. Jake Millison was, at the time of his disappearance in 2015, 29 years old, having spent pretty much his entire life on that 700-acre ranch, which amounted to log homes, cabins, and just rusty ale shite. The 7-Eleven Ranch was a shadow of its former glory. Back in the day, it was a successful hunting ranch. City slickers would come out and try and daka some game and live out their cowboy dreams before it was back to the everyday slog in the office. Jake and his older sister Stephanie, 1 year older, were the children of Deb and Ray, though Deb and Ray split when they were young children, Ray moving to New Mexico, and Deb moving in with her new husband. Her new husband was the rancher, and hence how they all ended up where they ended up, and that, my friends, was Rudy Rudibaugh. Well, his parents did not think that true. And although he was 2 decades older than Deb, they fell in love. She brought the kids over and, well, that was life. Rudy, he had been a frogman in World War II, you know, shooting lads. And he had one son who lived in Texas. After the war, he bought the ranch and brought it to its glory days, which were now, in 2015, long gone. Jake and Stephanie were homeschooled by Deb. Homeschooled because, you know, education. Right, school, books, learning. Enough of that L shite. Get out there and fix the tractor. Literally, that's what happened. Like, Rudy was like, why would I hire hands to help me out on the ranch when my new wife has 2 children? You know? Why would I pay someone to do work? That's what children are for. Branding cattle, repairing farm equipment, tractors, whatever. Caring for the horses, going out on the range, they did it all. As Jake got older, he went to school in town and made his friends, a small but tight-knit group of guys he could count on and could count on him. He was known as a stand-up guy, he didn't keep his thoughts to himself, loved jiu-jitsu, and someone who thought ahead, planned, and knew how to work on or fix pretty much anything. In 2009, Rudy passed away, and then it was just Jake and Deb on that big old farm. Stephanie lived in Denver with her husband, David Jackson, and after Rudy's death, she received an inheritance of $30,000. Jake received nothing, but the idea was that he would inherit the ranch. Jake and Rudy's son, who lived in Texas, they would split it, and it was worth like $3 million. But Jake was now trying to keep it together himself. The money was quickly non-existent. Jake, he would take on other jobs, to help bring in income. Landscaping, he did their deadliest catch for a summer. He even thought about once growing devil's lettuce on the land, which, that's illegal. Wait, is it in Colorado? I think it's... I don't know. Whatever, they were broke. It was the farm, it was his beloved Harley Davidson, and it was working non-stop. And then he went missing. The night before he went missing, he went to see a flick with a friend. They went to a bar after Jake. He didn't drink, he had a nice, cool, crisp glass of Coca-Cola, and he went home. The next day, which was a Saturday, he was supposed to meet up with his friends, and he was a no-show. That was the 16th of May, 2015. It was a few days later that his friends, tight-knit and not hearing from their bud, they popped out to the ranch. Have a goo and see what's what. They saw his dog there, his truck, his beloved bike, but not him. Inquiring, they asked Deb, who, in turn, said he'd gone to Reno, Nevada to take part in a martial arts tournament. He was big into that. And he just so happened to have dropped his phone in a ditch, and he had left it to dry in a bag of rice, and then he left and forgot about it. Hence why his friends, they couldn't get through to him. Alright. They stopped by then again a couple of days later. Still, no sign of him. And Deb said, hey, I'll let you know. Then, starting to get the hinkies about it, they asked the police to check. Deb told an officer more or less, but not the same story she had told before. This time he had left with a friend and went to the Nevada area. Somewhere over there, in that direction, just west. In all fairness, though, Jake had many times before gone, upped and left, right? Gone on impromptu trips, he'd just go away for a couple of days a week and then he'd return. But it was just a bit weird that nobody could hear from him this time. This time being months as it went by. Eventually, a missing persons report was filed by Deb, a Deb who was reluctant to file it because she said he could be back at any moment. He could return tomorrow, so why waste, time filling this out? Why waste police time?
I know he originally was going to go on his motorcycle, but decided to go with somebody, and he took enough stuff for 2 people. He also wiped out my groceries.
Oh, really? Huh.
And, he took all the Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatball thing, or raviolis or whatever's.
When is the last time you heard from him?
I'd have to look it up on a calendar. It was about the 20th.
Of September?
No.
20th
way back in
May?
Yeah. I'm not supposed to know, but I do know, because everybody's kept it a big dark secret, that my son has been doing drugs.
Have you two been typically close?
No.
No.
Once he started doing the mixed martial arts and the drugs and stuff, we had one argument and fight after another, and I knew he was going to be gone a while. He's been gone too long, and so I have declared him a missing person.
So it's possible he left of his own volition and then...
Oh, he did.
And then ended up getting into some kind of trouble.
Right.
The reports, though, went out. The stuff Debbie Duda was spouting, she was spouting pure shite. Jake's friends said he didn't do drugs, he didn't even drink, so that doesn't even sound like him having some kind of addiction. No. Classic Coca-Cola was the strongest drink he would have on a night out, and if he was even feeling a bit frisky, he might even go for off-brand cola, and who knows what's in that. Now, who knows what's in real Coke? But still, no word, sign, or hear of him, and a year passed. And then people began to notice things. Things like Stephanie, her husband Dave, and their son around town a lot more. They had now moved into the ranch. Now this did not look good at all to Jake's friends, because they knew Jake very well and they knew that he'd be damned before he would let Dave move into the ranch. It's safe to say Jake and Dave, his brother-in-law, didn't get on well, you might say. Dave, ex-carny, current shithead, and Stephanie moved back to Gunnison in 2012 from Denver. See, Stephanie wanted to be out. She always thought of herself as a country girl, tips cowboy hat, drinks Bud Light, but as soon as his sister and her family moved back to Gunnison, Jake thought this meant they wanted to get their hands on El Rancho. Jake was thinking maybe 30 grand wasn't enough for her, and now she wanted to get something extra, like part of the $3 million ranch. Which, to be fair, I mean, she kind of got shafted. 30 grand is compared to what the estate was worth. F all. So Stephanie and Jake, they more or less stayed out of each other's way, but Dave wanted nothing more than to get in Jake's way. One time things got so heated between them, Jake filed an order of protection against his brother-in-law. Fisticuffs were flying, intimidation, showing off the guns, that sort of thing. Stephanie was also getting pissed off at Jake because she thought like he was a little gremlin or something, and in 2014 she went onto the website moms.com and she wrote, "My younger brother is trying to ruin my life." Wah, wah, wah. Steph then started to become like a little worm tongue in her mother's ear, you know, whispering little secrets, trying to twist her old noodle. She was trying to get Deb to kick her son Jake off the farm. Now, Jake did all the work on the farm. It was pretty much a one-man show, and they never had enough money to hire any ranch hands. And Deb would bust his balls no matter how hard he worked. It was never enough. The farm was just loaded with owl shite, and there was never enough hours in the day. And when he would try to dump stuff, get some of the shite off the farm, like old couches, mouldy owl furniture and that kind of stuff, he would try and just dump it, you know, in, say, like big bins in town or whatever at the dump. As soon as Deb would have a go at him then for doing that, you know? She was a pure hoarder. But did she help, like, try and keep the place in order in some, like, semblance of cleanliness? Did she fuck? Deb Rudibaugh would not work a day in her life. She wouldn't work on batteries. So then, seeing Steph and Dave back at the farm and Jake not on the farm, and Dave riding Jake's beloved bike, like that was his #1 possession in the world. And he hated this guy. So, friends in the meantime spread the word more and more. Where is he? With word spreading around town and people pushing, search warrants became the words. Around then, Stephanie and Dave did hire a farmhand. Just basically, you know, you can park your trailer on our land, we're not going to pay you, but, you know, room and board. He was helping out, and one time he saw Stephanie and Dave looking at a manure pile. As he wandered up, he saw a rib cage sticking out of it. Steph said she didn't know what it was, so they asked Deb, and Deb said it was a bear Jake had killed. He'd killed it legally, so he'd hit it. And the farmhand didn't tell the police about what he saw, but it didn't look good. Then the police started getting closer and closer, and then just by like a stroke of luck, I guess you could say, there happened to be a load of cadaver dogs on land near the 7-Eleven ranch. There was literally a cadaver dog festival, training, whatever. It just happened to be in Gunnison. So, well, the dogs started sniffing in that direction. And then Deb went into the police. Preemptively, I guess, and she just said she had killed him. She said she shot him in the head while he was asleep and buried him in the backyard. They searched and discovered him, and they arrested no one.
See you in here for just a second. There's a couple of questions I need to clear up. What was your relationship with Jake?
Actually pretty good friends then.
Okay. You would consider your relationship pretty good?
We were really good friends. Me and Steph were first dating.
It was in 2015 that Jake was reported missing.
That sounds right.
Do you know roughly when you were told that Jake was missing?
The information I ended up getting, this is all I ended up getting, is like, I guess Jake hasn't called yet. He still hasn't called the next day. He still hasn't called.
And that's coming from whom?
Stephanie, mostly.
Okay.
Did you know anything about it at all?
Not until last night or yesterday.
Okay. So up until that point, you didn't know anything?
No.
Let me just ask you this. Did you kill him?
No.
Did you help dispose the body, wrapping it up, anything whatsoever?
I think I would have puked.
There's still something that you're not telling us. It's not just me. Everybody believes you were involved. It's unfortunate for them. No, it's unfortunate for you. Because right now, you failed the polygraph regarding whether you shot him or whether you helped move that body out of the house. She never said anything to me about it. And I did not help her drag him out of the house. So your DNA should be on the gun. I don't think so. I don't think I shot her. And therein lies the out. A person who had nothing to do with this would have said, I've never shot that gun. But I don't know. My friends won't go beyond that gun. I'd like lawyers. You don't seem to want to talk to me.
Deb's story was this. Now, just let it be known, Deb was 5 foot tall, less than 100 pounds, and suffering from cancer. She said one night she shot him dead in his bed, carried him out, and buried him, doing this all herself. She was solely responsible. She said this was due to his druggying behavior. Now, that didn't sound possible. She'd even had surgery a week before the murder in May 2015, and a doctor's visit a few days after the murder didn't report any signs of her lifting a guy who weighed over twice her weight. It was surprising she could even lift the gun.
Where in the manure pile was he?
Right there.
This board right here?
Yeah. I scooped him up on the other side, right there. Yeah. So I get up and I take the 357 and I walk upstairs. And I stand there a second and ask myself, do you want to live the rest of your life like this? However long or short it would be. My mind goes, no, and I pulled the trigger. I mean, I'll never forget waking up and having him stand over me with a pillow in his hands. I mean, that is so vivid. And then he didn't smile, he didn't scowl, he didn't do anything. He just put it down and walked out. It's like I hit a breaking point. I told myself, you've got to make a decision. Do you want to live the rest of your life in fear of him? Or do you want to do something? I'm still not allowed to lift anything. If I do, it'll tear stitches. I've got him wrapped. I've now got him rolled and onto the floor. Then I've got ropes around him so that I'm pulling him head first because that's the heaviest part of the body, and I'm going to need to get that part in the backhoe bucket. And then I get him hooked up to all the straps and everything.
I hear you're barking, big dog. Now, with everything that happened, it would be very surprising if Stephanie and Jake were not involved in the murder when, they would actually be big and strong enough to lift him out. And the motive, it would be very surprising if the motive wasn't the $3 million ranch. Deb's will was changed about a month before Jake died. Instead of leaving the ranch to go to Jake and Rudy's other son, rather it would go to Stephanie. Now you can see how small Deb is in her arrest footage, 7 months after Jake was found on the farm.
Being arrested for a warrant? A murder charge?
At which point Stephanie and Dave were arrested too. The bullet which killed Jake was still in his body, and it was traced to Deb's revolver, which had her DNA on the old handle. So she did kill her own son. Deb Rudibaugh was sentenced to 40 years in prison. She said she and she alone acted in killing her son.
That my daughter Stephanie Jackson in no way knowingly had anything to do with Jake's death or subsequent cover-up.
Steph would plead guilty to aiding in the crime, but that it was her mother's idea.
I would like to start out by saying thank you for the opportunity to speak. What I am guilty of is believing the stories and lies my mother told everyone for over 2 years. I would also like to apologize to my father, my grandparents, my extended family, and anyone else who's been affected by my mother's heinous actions.
Even though her mother had nothing to gain. The night of the murder, Steph received a text saying, "It's time to play." She quickly deleted that text and then later posted on Facebook, "Have you ever been awoken with such awesome news you wanted to run outside screaming? Well, have you?" She was sentenced to 24 years.
Very specific as to what your mother-in-law told you about Jake's death.
She just started telling us, yeah, I told him I did it. She said that she shot him upstairs in the loft. She wrapped him in plastic and drug him out and buried him.
She's explaining to you that she just shot her son.
Yeah, and I'm standing there sick to my stomach.
Is Stephanie basically kind of the boss?
Pretty much.
David, who killed Jacob?
I don't know. I don't know. That's one thing that scares out of me. Because if it's the woman I've been sleeping with every night, it terrifies me.
Dave was sentenced to 10 years in prison for moving the body.
You repeatedly misrepresented your knowledge about the disappearance of the victim. Is that correct? Yes, sir.
About 6 months after being sentenced, Deb would die in prison from the cancer, but, you know, let's not cry over spilled milk. But what she did take to the grave with her was what really happened on that ranch between Jake, Deb, Steph, and Dave. I mean, this is a story of a guy who gave everything, his whole life, to the ranch. It was his past, it was his present, it was his future. And it was brutally taken away from him. The sister, the brother-in-law come to town and start twisting, worm-tumming their way in, turning the mother against the son to the point where she murdered him while he was sleeping. She showed no remorse for killing him, never did. And maybe because she was on the way out, she just didn't give a shit. Though at the same time, usually people on the way out want to show some remorse. It's hard to comprehend the lack of any positive human emotions she had for Jake. It's a story with a lot going on in the background, a mystery, and a lot of family secrets which have now been taken to the grave, and the other ones they're never going to say. But, you know, shin A. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so and be here with this guy. Here, go on. I'll see you as always real soon in the next old video. Until then, though, please, look out for each other and yourselves. So, yeah. Okay.